Yeah, I get thanks, dude. I get like insta high with those.
I get
Crazy.
insta high.
Insta high, insta kill, insta stone.
That sounds like an infomercial. Insta high at your local Walmart.
Insta high. Do you need to get high really fast? Do you want to get blown but don't have the time?
Well, look no further.
Introducing
Instafly. Insta high.
Insta high. Get high instantly.
Get high instantly. All right. Three, two. What is going on, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Sideline Podcast. I'm your host, Adam Flores, and I am always joined by the wonderful Christopher Marquez.
Yo, I got a wonderful there.
You
Wow.
got a wonderful today. You put me in a good mood
Oh,
today.
are you feeling good or like
I'm
are you
I'm
just in a
feeling
good mood or
good.
what?
Yeah, like I don't know, I woke up in a good mood. I was like, you know what? Today's going to be a good day. You got to wake up like that every day.
So you woke up on the right side of the bed as opposed to the wrong side of the bed.
Exactly. I woke up
And
on
you
the
can
right
see
side of
my
my bed.
dog in the shot, by the way. So say what's up to Bud, everybody. That's my dog. He
Hi,
says hello
bud.
to the podcast.
He says hello.
But yeah, we are back with another episode number 6, the Sideline Podcast. Adam, thank you for having me once again. Really fast, guys. Make sure you guys are subscribing, liking, sharing, following us on Instagram. Find us on social media so you can see when we're dropping episodes every week. And we do have a little bit of some big news. Me and Adam are going to be stepping this production level up here a little bit. We're not going to get into that right now, but just know that is on the horizon. And we already know Adam's having a great day. So, in order for me to have a great day, let me crack this celebratory beer. Sounds like this. Cheers to you, Adam. It's a beautiful
Cheers.
Sunday.
I always got
Let's
my
get into
water.
it, dude.
I don't have coffee today. It was a little bit of a
Fucking
switch up.
water, dude. You and your water, dude. Okay, hold on. PSA. Okay,
Oh
water.
man.
Water's weird. Okay.
Sure.
Yes,
Yeah.
we need to drink it, all that, right? But
Okay, but
you
like,
know,
what do you
like,
think? What do you think your beer is like based off of? Like, without
okay, hold
water,
on.
where would beer
Is
be?
that a Bud Light joke?
No, no, no. It's not a Bud Light. It's a beer joke. Like in general, not even a joke. It's just like a beer reference. It's like, without water, what is beer?
Right. I mean, I'm not denying that, but I mean, if you're coming at me for drinking Bud Lights, I will fight you right now.
No, no, not at all. Not at all. I mean,
Okay. All right.
I'm
Let's just get that. Let's just make that clear.
I'm
Okay.
a
Anyways,
twisted tea
water,
drinker.
guys.
I love twisted teas.
What? What? Out of nowhere, I love twisted teas. You don't even drink.
No, but when I do drink, it's twisted teas. I'm not a beer drinker.
Oh,
Like I'm just not a beer
when he
fan.
drinks, he
When I
likes
do
to get
drink.
twisted. And then you know what he likes to do, ladies and gentlemen? He likes to take the top off.
I take the top off always. You gotta always take that top off. You know, just a little bit, just a little bit.
Okay, so you had an idea for today's episodes, right?
I do. So it's gonna be what we call the stock market episode, and it's gonna be the sophomore edition. So we're gonna be
Sophomore
recapping.
edition.
We're gonna be recapping last year's draft class, and we're kind of gonna go over the basis of the main players, and then we're gonna dive a little bit further into the depth chart of some of these teams. Fifth, sixth, seventh rounders, maybe players that took off in the fifth, sixth, seventh round, or players that have the potential to leap into a starting role or a relevant role in terms of fantasy, in terms of just real life production, because obviously fantasy football is based off of real life production. So we're going to be going through rounds 1 through 7. Rounds 1, 2, 3 are probably the most important of all of them, and then we're going to combine like rounds 5, 6, and 7 and just kind of look at all of them in a whole. But I think round 1 has like insane talent. Looking back at it, I think this is like one of the strongest draft classes the NFL has probably ever had, and that might be like a really strong take just because they're rookies, but if you really look at some of the production of these guys, like it was off the charts this year.
Right. And also the potential for guys like JJ McCarthy, who's on this list, because we are anticipating that he will start in Minnesota. So even the guys that haven't played him, Michael Penix, he didn't play a whole lot. He played towards the end of the season. But yeah, very impressive first round list here. I think there's 14 players that you noted. I think you said you kept this all skill position based.
Yeah, so it's all going to be skill positions, specifically quarterback, wide receiver, tight end, running back. There's very few tight ends on this list. If you guys are familiar with last year's draft class, there was only maybe like three relevant tight ends that were actually taken in the draft. Obviously, with the superstar in Brock Bowers that the Raiders drafted at pick 13. But we're going to go pick by pick. So we're going to go with the number one overall pick in the 2024 NFL draft, starting with Caleb Williams, quarterback out of USC. I thought he was really decent as a quarterback this year. I don't think he was anything spectacular. I think he did really good in terms of production from a quarterback, or as best as you could ask for out of a Chicago quarterback. They haven't had great quarterback success over even like the last decade, ever since maybe Jay Cutler was there. I couldn't name you a quarterback that came out of Chicago and they were like, wow, like he turned into a really good quarterback. I think the only name I have at the top of my head is Jay Cutler.
Yeah, Jake Cutler for sure. I'm trying to think. That's yeah, dude. Quarterbacks in Chicago. What are those? They have those there? I didn't know they ever had those there.
Yeah, it's like two people with
Yeah,
insane
that's
beef is Chicago and quarterback position. Like, they just don't get along.
dude. I'm thinking about it, and yeah, it's like notable Bears quarterbacks.
I mean, like they drafted Mitch
Kyle
Trubisky.
Orton, maybe.
Wow, Kyle Orton. Shout out Kyle Orton.
Kyle Orton. Wow, we that's a deep dive if Kyle Orton's getting a shot here on the podcast. But yeah, dude, I don't know. Like you said, not the best place to be a quarterback, Chicago. It's kind of weird how that works out, honestly. Caleb Williams threw for over 3,000 yards and 20 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. So that's actually pretty good for a rookie quarterback with, arguably not the best weapons around him, a decent running game, but, also playing in a tough division with the NFC North. I think that Caleb Williams will probably have another positive season, probably better than the one he just had. But I don't know if how fantasy relevant do you think he is? Is he somebody that you're targeting as your starter? I don't think so. I think he's probably a tier two or tier three quarterback still, even with the production that he had this year. I don't know. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, definitely not as a starting quarterback for sure. I think when it comes to Caleb Williams, it's only up from here. I think his production goes up in terms of touchdown to interception ratio. I think his yards go up. I think his attempts go up. Or actually, you know what? I don't know if his attempts will go up. I think Ben Johnson, now that they're offensive coordinators there, I think he's gonna have Caleb Williams maybe pass the ball a little bit less and try not running around so much. So you want to pass the ball less and have more production. That's just how it goes. You want to have a 40-yard play every single time. That's just what the NFL is. You want that every single play, even though you don't get that every single play. But I think an offensive coordinator like Ben Johnson can make something work with the weapons that they have there with Roma Dunze and especially DJ Moore. But Keenan Allen doesn't look like he's going to be returning. There's rumors that they might draft Ashton Genty this year. So I think it only goes up for Caleb Williams from here, on top of bolstering their offensive line. I think they got three offensive linemen this offseason already. So it's gone really well for them in offseason for the past 2 years already. Last year, we thought they were going to be this playoff caliber team, but it wasn't anything close to that this past year. I think they won 4 games, if I'm not mistaken, or 5 games. So, like you said, they're in a tough division, but I think Caleb Williams does not have a sophomore slump. I do think he progresses as a quarterback, and I would put him maybe like a tier 2 quarterback this year, probably in that 12 to 24 range for quarterbacks. So like if you're in a super flex league, I think personally I would be drafting Caleb Williams for sure, like in the top 4, or maybe not the top 4, maybe like the top 6 rounds for a quarterback, but I would not draft him in a 1 QB league.
Yeah, yeah. Superflex is different. If you're running two quarterbacks, yeah, it's probably wise that you stack up on quarterbacks early, but in a standard one quarterback league, yeah, I don't think he's somebody that I'm looking at. One thing that I was looking at here on Google is, good God, there's no quarterbacks for Chicago ever. Jim Harbaugh at one time, Chicago Bear quarterback. Jim McMahon, Rex Grossman was the other one that was wandering in my head. But yeah, that's a sad, sad list of quarterbacks for Chicago. Pretty alarming, actually. When I googled it, it was kind of scary, honestly. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see what the future holds for Caleb. But I think he's probably out of the people on this list. He's probably got the highest ceiling when it comes to quarterbacks besides Jaden Daniels because we've already kind of seen what he can do. But I still, very weary of drafting anybody from Chicago for fantasy purposes at this point.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Jaden Daniel, so let's move on. Round one, pick two, the number two overall. Probably or arguably the best player in this draft in Jaden Daniels, quarterback out of LSU, and he had just nothing short of a phenomenal season this year. He had 3,500 yards and he had 25 touchdowns and 9 interceptions. And you might be thinking, oh, well, that's almost pretty close to what Caleb Williams did. So why didn't Caleb Williams have a good year? Well, you got to keep in mind that Caleb Williams only won 4 games while Jaden Daniels almost made the Super Bowl his rookie year. That's not something to take lightly. And on top of that, he had almost 1,000 rushing yards, or I think he had right at 1,000. No, he was almost. So he had 891, 900 rushing yards, six rushing touchdowns. He had 3 fumbles. I mean, I don't really look at the fumbles. Fumbles happen. They're freak accidents. I know, like Baker Mayfield had a hell of an amount of fumbles this year, so I don't really see fumbles as like a really bad stat in terms of or for quarterbacks. I think it's more of a stat for like running backs, but I think Jaden Daniels had a fantastic season. I think I would be drafting him very, very high in any draft, whether it's dynasty startup, whether it's a redraft league, whether it's a keeper league, whether it's a super flex league. I would be drafting him top two, top three rounds.
Oh yeah, especially like for somebody like me who likes to take quarterbacks late, that would be somebody that I would be looking for, especially with his ability to run the ball. I mean, he had one game alone where he ran for 127 yards on 16 carries, which that's like a running back. That's a running back stat line plus whatever he did passing that game, which was 227 yards. So, there's a lot of usage for Jaden Daniels fantasy wise as well. And yeah, I mean, you could compare his numbers to Caleb Williams, but the ultimate indicator of a good season is how does your team perform? Do you win or not? Do you make the playoffs? And for them to have had the season that they had with first year head coach and a whole new coaching staff for the Commanders, I think Jaden Daniels continues to have this climb to probably be one of the better quarterbacks in the league if he can stay healthy. That's always the caveat. But yeah, great pickup for the Commanders, and it's crazy how fast you can turn your franchise around with a good draft pick and a solid new coaching staff in town.
Yeah, I mean, I look at Jaden Daniels almost as like a gold standard when it comes to drafting a player. That's exactly what you want out of a player. You want a difference maker. You want somebody that can completely turn your franchise around. A complete 180 turn. It wasn't a gradual 4-year thing where they had to sign him to a monster deal and then like, okay, let's lock him down and then we can go get weapons. Right now they're in a win now mode. I think they're in a win now mode. They went to go get Debo Samuel. They re-signed um Zach Ertz, they re-signed Bobby Wagner, so they're getting their players back that really worked for them for their scheme last year for Dan Quinn's offense and or their Dan Quinn's team, and I think they're in a win now mode to where they're like, let's get the absolute most out of Jaden Daniels' contract. Let's go and get. I think they still have the potential to draft another difference maker this year and maybe a late round running back or a late round wide receiver that can really push them over the top, or even like a really strong safety in the draft, or just a late rounder that nobody really knows and then they can develop them. But I think that's best case scenario for them. um, Best case scenario for round one, pick three, Drake May, the Patriots. They're looking to still rebuild. The Patriots are not in a good position right now, but Drake May looked okay last year. What do you think about Drake May last year?
Probably one of the most alarming stats that I see looking at his breakdown from this year is that his longest pass was only 40 yards. And which is kind of crazy if you think about the way the NFL is. I mean, you can get a 70-yard screen to the house if you set it up right. I mean, but I think that goes to show more of the lack of talent that is surrounding Drake May. 15 touchdowns, 10 interceptions last year, QB rating of 58.6 or QBR of 58.6. So not the best. I don't, it's hard to it's hard to really tell with Drake May. Obviously, not somebody that I would target at all for fantasy purposes. But if you're in New England, I guess you could have done worse than Drake May in the draft last year. So at least they have that potential quarterback piece to build around and to build the team going into the future. But you know more about the Patriots than I do because they are your favorite team. But um, I it's too early to the jury's still out on Drake May, I would say, and I'll be interested to see how he progresses. But like for me, like I said, not touching him in fantasy at all until I see that the team around him just gets better. You know what I mean? Like that's the only way that his fantasy relevance will be there is if the skill positions are improved in New England.
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily be targeting him. I would wait until after the draft to see what they do. I've heard rumors that they trade back and they get Tet McMillan from Arizona and a good wide receiver, or they even trade up, or there's a scenario where they get Abdul Carter, there's a scenario where they get Ashton Genty. I've heard numerous things on social media, and it's just I think the best possible scenario would probably be something like trade back. You get a early or a late second rounder out of it, as well as trading back a couple spots, maybe to like in the 16 range, and then you can get Tet McMillan from there. And I think Tet McMillan is a great wide receiver. I think he's my favorite wide receiver in this draft class. He's probably over Travis Hunter, in my opinion. Travis Hunter, I don't really see him as an elite wide receiver. I see him more as a DB. That's just the personal take. I know everybody has their take on Travis Hunter this year, but I see him more as a DB, and I don't think we really like. I don't think we're in dire need of defensive back help. I think we're in dire need of like a D line help, which is why we got Milton Williams. But I say we like if I'm on the team or something. But
Like you're the GM, he's
yeah, no
like
kidding.
you negotiated the deal. You're like, yeah, no big deal.
Yeah, so like we basically signed this guy. Like I closed the deal on him, but I think that's why we
He
got
came to the
Milton
Patriots because
Williams.
of me.
I think it was a good signing, but I do think they need wide receiver help. I don't think Jalen Polk is the answer, and maybe he could have a better year his sophomore year, but he definitely did not look good whatsoever last year. I remember watching a game where they were playing Jacksonville in London, and he had like four drop passes that one game, and he was all crying about it on his social media. And I'm like, dude, like that's nobody else's fault but yours. So I don't really like Jalen Polk after what he did last year and just already being a diva as a rookie. You just don't do that.
Yep, I mean we've seen that before. We see that all the time with wide receivers. They can be very diva-ish, especially if things aren't going their way. Another wide receiver that was taken in last year's draft, Marvin Harrison Jr. What pick did he go again?
Round one, pick four, the
Pick
first wide
four. That's what
receiver
I
taken
thought.
off the board.
That's crazy. I think. Do you think he benefits from having the name Marvin Harrison?
You know what? I would say a little bit, just a little bit. I don't
I
think
would say.
he's I don't think he's round one, pick four talent. I thought he was great coming out of Ohio State. I don't think he was pick four worthy. Now looking back at it, I mean, it's easy to say after looking back at this past year that he was not the first wide receiver that should have been taken off the board, you know. But I see him as for I
But how
still
much does Kyler Murray affect that though?
I think it genuinely affects him a lot, but in the negative way.
Right,
I don't think Kyler
right,
Murray
right.
is a
That's
star-studded
what I'm
quarterback.
trying to say is that imagine, let's just say that he ended up on the Lions somehow. Like
Oh yeah,
he would probably
100%.
have a very different rookie season. I mean, it kind of sucks that you can't help who drafts you and you can't help who's throwing you the ball as a wide receiver. Marvin Harrison finished with 885 yards, 8 touchdowns, a long reception of 60 yards. So, you know, he was targeted pretty often, but I do think that just the Kyler Murray effect, where he's not always looking to make the right play, he's more looking to make the big play, which can get him in trouble sometimes. And I think that kind of hindered Marvin Harrison Jr. this year in a way.
Yeah, 100%. I don't think Marvin Harrison looked terrible this year. I don't think so whatsoever. I think he was still first round talent worthy. I don't think he was pick four worthy, but I still think he's first round talent. He did have that one game against I think it was the Rams where he had like an insane game of like three receiving touchdowns or two receiving touchdowns. Let me see here. Yeah,
Yeah,
it
he
was.
4 receptions on 8 targets for 130 yards and 2 touchdowns with that long of 60 yards against the Rams.
Yeah, it's just it's
That's
in.
the game that you were referencing there.
Yeah, like it's insane to me how he had 4 receptions, 2 of those went for touchdowns. So it was 50% of his catches went for a touchdown. He had 130 yards, and it was just like 3 or 2 really big plays, you know. And then you go a
Yep.
couple games up to the Green Bay game, 0 receptions on 2 targets, 0 yards, 0 touchdowns, like goose egg all the way against Green Bay. So I don't know. I think it does have to do with the offensive scheming, especially with Kyler Murray at QB, and then like even the next game. Sure, you got 3 receptions, but what did you do with that? You got 21 yards, and it's like for a fantasy relevant wide receiver, it's just really hard for me to believe in Marvin Harrison, simply because of who's throwing him the ball.
Right. And I agree. And I don't know if he's even worthy of a flex spot on a fantasy team at this point because of that of just because the way Arizona plays. And, Kyler Murray, we've talked about him before, not the biggest fan. So if he's going to still be the quarterback number one in Arizona, I think the stock for Mr. Harrison Jr. there just goes down or is not very high until we see Kyler Murray play a different style of football than what he's been playing his whole career.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think Kyler Murray is ever going to change as a QB. I think he's set in his ways already. He's too far. I'm not going to say like too far gone, but he's too far gone. You know, like he's just. I don't think there's really helping him anymore. I don't believe in him as a QB1 moving forward. I don't. Like Kyler Murray's great for fantasy sometimes. This past year, he was like
Uh,
it was a coin toss. You either got a really good game from Kyler Murray or you got a really horrible game from Kyler Murray. And that's why people held on to him. And he was just like, it's almost like a Trojan horse. It's like here, like, oh my God, look at this glorious
uh,
running quarterback. Oh well, only 50% of his games were like good. You know, like you won half the time, you lost half the time. Like there was no two ways about it.
I'm
But
not gonna say he's washed, but he is washed.
yeah, I
That's
absolutely
pretty
think
much
he's
what you just
washed.
said.
Pretty much.
That's funny.
But yeah, let's move on to round one, pick six. So we are gonna skip a couple. Obviously, we're not gonna go through absolutely every single draft pick. We're gonna do skill players, like we said. But the next one on the board is Malik Neighbors, the second wide receiver, taken off the board.
A tremendous talent out of LSU. LSU is wide receiver U at the moment. But I mean, same kind of situation with him, right? I mean, he has some monster games when they can get him the ball, but then, there's other games where he kind of disappears as well. He did have 1,200 receiving yards and 7 touchdowns on the year. I had him in a fantasy league, I believe in our fantasy league, if
Did you
I'm
really?
correct. Um, so, he did have to give you some games where, he had the game against Dallas. He was, 12 receptions, 15 targets, 115 yards, no touchdown, but he's a touchdown away from really breaking that game open fantasy wise. Solid year. And I would say for a rookie, it's a solid year that he had, especially with the quarterback situation in New York. There was even a game where he was 7 for 8, 171, and 2 touchdowns. So he really can show you his breakout potential. I really do like Malik Neighbors. I will be targeting him in fantasy this year for sure, just because a wide receiver number one from any team is valuable in fantasy because of the production and the usage. So I would be looking for Neighbors if possible, regardless of who's throwing him the ball in New York.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think Malik Neighbors. I think he's going to be one of those players that people aren't going to be afraid to draft him because of his QB situation. He's completely different from Marvin Harrison. Marv is like, okay, he's splitting touches with James Conner in the backfield, and then he's also splitting touches with Trey McBride in the outside on the tight end position. They don't really have a other wide receiver threat that's going to take away the targets from him, but simply because Kyler Murray absolutely loves throwing the ball to Trey McBride, 14 times a game, he's just going to struggle to get that target share. When you're in New York, it's a completely different scenario. Like you have Tyrone Tracy, who was also taken in this draft class, which turned out to be a great steal in the draft. And then Malik Neighbors is just he's so good as a wide receiver. I think he's great. He's only 21 years old. He's going to be 22 at the start of next season. And like you said, he had that one game against Indianapolis where he went 7 for 8, 171 and 2 touchdowns. Like who was throwing him the ball? Like, was it? I don't even know who it was. Tommy DeVito, or I don't know who was throwing him the ball that game. I think it was Drew Lock throwing him the ball that game. So if Drew Lock can get him the ball 7 times for 180 yards and 2 touchdowns, I have full confidence if they draft whether it's Shador Sanders or whether they go and get Aaron Rodgers or even if it's Jameis Winston who they actually just signed. If Jameis Winston is chucking the ball to Malik Neighbors, you best believe Malik Neighbors is going to go for 3,000 receiving yards this year, and that's just how it's going to work. He might have 3,000 yards and 40 touchdowns if Jameis Winston is checking him the ball. So I think I would absolutely be looking for Malik Neighbors
Jeez.
in the first few rounds because he's going to go pretty quick.
Yeah, I mean, if Jameis is in fact QB1 for the Giants, and he's launching the ball 45 times a game, and 20 of those are interceptions because that's what Jameson does. Jameson, what did I call him? Jameson. Wow.
Jameson?
I have a
Wow.
drinking problem, everybody.
Hey.
But yeah, I mean, if you look at the wide receivers that New York has right now, and you're gonna laugh at one of these names, but it's Malik Neighbors, Wandell Robinson, and then I kid you not, there's a guy named Little Jordan Humphrey on the team.
Lil Jordan
Little
Humphrey.
Jordan Humphrey listed as like fourth or
What?
five on the depth chart, and then Darius Slayton. I feel like he's been a giant he has been a giant for his whole career,
I
but
feel
I
like
feel
he's been
like
in the
that
league
guy's
for
been
like 10
playing
years.
football for the past 25 seasons in my mind. So yeah, the usage and the potential for a lot of output for Neighbors is there. So yeah, like you said, target him and target him early because he's gonna go fast.
All right, round one, pick eight. Michael Penix Jr., quarterback out of Washington. So we actually had back-to-back picks here in the draft out of Washington. It was Michael Penix at 8, Roma Dunze at 9. We'll get into Roma Dunze right now. But Michael Penix, he looked okay this year when he started his couple games. I know he sat behind the million-dollar man himself, Kirk Cousins, but he looked okay the last couple games that he played. I don't think he was absolutely terrible. I think he's got some future. I think everybody was kind of scared at the beginning because they were like, "Whoa, this guy's already 24 years old and he's going to sit behind Kirk Cousins for the next 4 years because Kirk Cousins is our guy and we paid him, an absolute bag. So by the time he starts or by the time he even gets traded to another team, he's going to be 28, 29 years old." And that's not something you look forward to as a franchise as a 28-year-old quarterback who's barely playing his first couple snaps in the league. So they did end up deciding to roll with him late in the season. I don't know exactly which games he started. I think it was the last like 3 or 4 games.
He started 3 games at the end. He started home against the Giants, at the Commanders, and then home against Carolina. They lost 2 of those in overtime, and they beat the Giants 34-7. He also had 2 other appearances early in the season: a cameo against Denver in a 38-6 blowout, and then another cameo against Seattle, another blowout, 34-14. So I mean, yes, he's gonna get his chance this season. I liked him when he was playing with Washington, and he really took a Washington team that historically Washington in football is not, the powerhouse of a Texas or nowhere near an Alabama, Ohio State, Michigan, any of those teams. But for them to have been in the Final Four in college football was big. That's why you see Penix go so high in the draft, and then sitting behind my boy Kirk Cousins. Don't you ever slander my guy. Um, it was tough. It was a tough situation, but we'll see how he does. I would not target him at all for fantasy during the draft. Maybe later on in the season, if you need a quarterback on a bye week and he's starting and playing well, then you can maybe add him as a free agent. But no draft relevance in fantasy wise for me this upcoming season.
Yeah, he did start three. He did play 3 full games, and I'm looking at a trend here where he had one interception every single game. So, I mean, if you're throwing for 4 touchdowns a game and you got one interception, that's understandable. But his first game against the Giants, 0 touchdowns, 1 interception. And then against Washington, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Carolina, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. So it's a trend, and maybe he'll have 40 touchdowns and 1 interception in one game because that's the trend it's looking like. But when you're throwing a pick against New York, you're throwing a pick against Washington, you're throwing a pick against Carolina, and those are three teams this year that didn't really have a defense. So if you're throwing a pick against those teams, you might have an interception problem. But if he really steps up his game, which I think he has the potential to with the weapons around him, and I mean he's got Bijan in the backfield, who we already know is easily a top 5 running back in the league right now, and then we also have Drake London, who's coming off of a fantastic year. I think he has the potential to make a leap rather than be like a sophomore slump kind of guy and be like, oh, well, we're not going to target this guy. So I'm actually thinking quite the opposite from you, Chris. I think this is somebody that I may want to target more of like as a dark horse, not necessarily like, okay, like this guy's going to be the QB1 for the year. I think he has the potential to be a top I would put him maybe like the potential to be a top 12 quarterback, but I really realistically I think he'll be in the QB 16, QB 17 range. That's kind of where I see him. So I think if you really want to get a guy in the late rounds more of as a dark horse and who has the potential to make that leap, I would be looking at Michael Penix Jr. in the draft.
Yeah, that's a tough one there. I mean, it just depends. I guess it's going to depend on how Drake London plays, how BJ Robinson continues to develop. Um, I just Atlanta kind of scares me fantasy wise for quarterback. I mean, like I said, Drake London probably the only guy that I'm looking at as a wide receiver from there. Uh, Robinson, obviously, running back number one. You have to have some fantasy relevance there as well. But I don't know, man. I can't see myself picking him up. I mean, I usually only roll with one quarterback during the draft anyway. So I don't think, to me, there's more value getting another wide receiver or running back because you're going to play those positions more. You're going to have to start them more frequently. And I think you could get by without picking up Penix in the draft. I think he's someone that will linger as a free agent unless you have a somebody that's an Atlanta Falcon in your fantasy league. Then they'll if they're a fan of them, they'll probably try to pick him up. I would say.
Yeah, well, let's get on to his Washington teammate, Rome Odunze, round one, pick 9, wide receiver. Um, I feel like there's really not much to say about Rome Odunze this year. I mean, it's almost as if like he was never on the field, but yet he was somehow always on the field. You know, he was being overshadowed by DJ Moore, and he was being overshadowed by Keenan Allen, and it's kind of like everybody forgot this guy was a top 10 pick. You know, everybody kind of looks at Rome Odunze as the wide receiver 3 on the team, and I understand that behind Keenan Allen and DJ Moore, but I think he has the potential to be the wide receiver 1 and the wide receiver 2 on this team if DJ Moore were to go down, and I don't think Keenan Allen's coming back already. So I think he has the potential to be a wide receiver 1 or a wide receiver 2 in this team. I don't really know how I feel about him in terms of maybe touchdown production. He had 3 touchdowns all year, and he played all 17 games. So, I mean, Keenan Allen was more of the touchdown guy, like towards the middle of the year when Caleb Williams was like kind of iffy. He was like on a roller coaster. But, I mean, 101 targets. He had only 54 receptions. So he's only catching half his passes. And he got 734 yards. So, I mean,
Yeah,
he was
I
on pace
mean,
for 14.
to me, it's just like I think it's just being on the Bears. I mean, they're just not a good team. You know what I mean? And I think that when you're a wide receiver 3 on a team like Detroit, right, who loves to spread the ball and loves to make big plays, and you can see them having more success. But if you're wide receiver 3 in Chicago, I mean, yeah, he got some targets, but he only caught half of them, so he wasn't really helping himself in a way. And I'm sure having the rookie quarterback Caleb Williams is also going to be a little detrimental in a way because he's still learning the game himself, and then you have and then you're a rookie wide receiver as well, so you're still trying to adapt. So the jury's still out on him. I would probably not look his way in the draft until we know who the other wide receivers are going to be in Chicago. Sorry, my dog says hello, and he's not a Roma Duzier fan either. But yeah, not a lot to say about this guy, just simply because I think, like I said before, playing on the Chicago Bears is really tough right now. And I don't see at the moment where you would take him in the fantasy draft. Super late, if anything, but not somebody that I'm like targeting just because of the way the offense is in Chicago.
All right, to round out the top 10, we got J.J. McCarthy, quarterback out of Michigan. The previous year, he had won the national title with Harbaugh as coach. And then he goes to the Minnesota Vikings at pick 10, and everybody thought, whoa, like, okay, like that's a really good pick for Minnesota, moving on from Kirk Cousins. And then unfortunately, he has a preseason injury. He tears, I think it was his ACL that he tore, or was it a meniscus? Or no, it was an ACL, right? I think it was an ACL.
Yeah, I
So
believe it was the ACL. I mean, regardless, tearing anything in your knee is not going to be good, especially for a quarterback.
yeah,
But yeah, go ahead.
yeah. I mean, it's not like we can really say like, oh, you need to be targeting this guy because he had a great year. He didn't play a single snap. I mean, he didn't play a single game all year long. Unfortunately, he was sitting behind Sam Darnold, who had a really great year, and they didn't even have a chance to be like, oh, like JJ McCarthy, like you can play for the last game of the season. Like, no, they didn't want to do that at all. And then all the offseason talks, they're shutting everybody up about the Aaron Rodgers rumors, and they're like, no, we believe in JJ McCarthy. JJ McCarthy is our QB1 moving forward. And I think that shows a lot of confidence coming from Kevin O'Connell as the head coach. And I think Kevin O'Connell's a great coach. I think JJ McCarthy has the potential to produce with this offense. They have TJ Hawkinson at tight end. You got Aaron Jones in the backfield. And then your two wideouts are going to be Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson, who's arguably one of the best receivers in the league. So, or not even arguably, he is one of the best receivers in the league. So, I think JJ McCarthy has the potential to boom again this year. Hopefully, if he stays away from injuries, I would be careful with this guy going into the draft because I think he could be like he's an absolute wild card. I think him and Michael Penix both are just wild cards this year. They both have the potential to be really great this year considering their offenses, but I also think they have the potential to be like, oh, look at me in a super flex league, look my way because we're in a really good offense, and then they just completely bust. So I would be really careful with these guys. I don't know where I would rank JJ McCarthy in terms of the starting QBs in the league right now. I'd probably put him, I mean, just give him the benefit of the doubt, put him like in the top 25 quarterbacks in the league right now. So I don't know. What do you think about JJ McCarthy?
Well, I mean, I'm looking back at his Michigan stats. He played 3 years. Well, his first year, I guess he didn't really even play because he only had 59 attempts. So he probably came in at the end of the season. Um, 22 touchdowns in his sophomore year, 22 touchdowns in his junior year, and he almost threw for 3,000 yards per season. So I guess you could say there is potential. He only threw 11 interceptions in college over 3 years. That is pretty crazy.
That is really good.
So, I mean, with those numbers, if you're looking at that and trying to do a projection to the NFL, um, yeah, it looks good on paper, right? But, he hasn't played. So how are we even going to say he's top 25 or top whatever when he hasn't even taken a snap? So we'll see how it pans out. He does have the weapons around him. A coach that apparently seems to be behind this guy and says, yeah, you know what, we're going to roll with him as our starting quarterback. Sam Darnold, yeah, it was nice. It was nice to date you and meet you, but it's me, not you. We're moving on.
It was me, not
So we'll
you.
see how that goes. I would not draft him at all either in this fantasy draft, and try to look for him as a waiver wire claim if he turns out to be as productive, anywhere as productive as he was in college.
Right, and I think the telltale sign is going to be like the first couple weeks of the season because everybody's so quick to be like after week one when somebody has a great season, they're like, oh my god, like this guy's going to be the wide receiver one or the QB one or the RB one, and it's just like that's what happened last year with a couple players, and then you started to realize like, okay, like maybe they're not an elite player at their position, so let's slow down on them. And I mean, if you want to jump on him right away, by all means, go for it. But I completely would not recommend it. One guy I would recommend is Bo Nix, round one, pick 12 out of Oregon, and he had a great year. I mean, this was one of the top. quarterbacks in the league in terms of fantasy and in terms of just overall quarterback production and talent. And honestly, I truly believed in Bo Nix from the beginning. I said it from the beginning. I remember I was talking with one of my coworkers, and he was like, "Nah, like Bo Nix is trash." And I'm like, "No, dude. Like, look at his size. Like, look at the way he can run the ball too. Like, he was just a great overall quarterback. He had 3,700 yards. He almost had 4,000 yards as a rookie. He had almost 30 passing touchdowns, and he had 12 interceptions. So the 12 interceptions are whatever, but when you're throwing 30 touchdowns, that's respectable. You know, if you're throwing 12 touchdowns and 12 interceptions, that's a problem. But 30 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, I think that's respectable. He had some really great games. They just missed out on the playoffs. Oh no, they just made the playoffs right over the Bengals. If you guys remember all that late season drama last year. But then of course they ended up getting just absolutely blown out by the Bills. I mean, we all kind of knew the Bills were going to win. I saw some stuff like on social media and some of my friends were telling me like, "Oh, be careful with the Broncos, like you don't want to play the Broncos in the playoffs." I'm like, "No, like if I were the Bills, I'd be happy I was playing the Broncos in the playoffs." They just don't have the absolute complete team yet, but I think when you're looking at Bo Nix in a microscope, I think he's a great talent on this team.
Right. So one of the things that you were saying about Michael Penix is that his age is that you're like this guy's old. This guy's old. He's going to be 28 starting his first game. So Bo Nix is actually 25 years old already.
Yeah, I know.
And so what's crazy about that is I think in the other positions, yeah, you don't want to be a 25-year-old rookie running back, right? Or a 25-year-old rookie wide receiver. But for the quarterback position, it's almost beneficial to have a guy who is older and who's played so much because they're more mature and they know the game more. They understand defenses and how to read them, which is why you've seen him transfer his skill set to the NFL almost seamless. And he did almost throw for 4,000 yards, like you said. Got it kind of 180 the Broncos as well because they were a dumpster fire with Russell Wilson there, and they one good pick in the draft, and look, you make the playoffs the next year. So huge potential for him. I can see him being a quarterback that is going to be a starter for almost any fantasy team because of the usage. So target him because he will go fast. Quarterbacks usually do go fast. And after the rookie season he had, Broncos fans especially are going to be looking to put him on their fantasy team. But yeah, great young quarterback for the Broncos. But I think the age factor is what is giving him the upper hand on somebody like JJ McCarthy, who's only going to be 22 years old when he plays his first game.
Yeah, I mean, in our league, because I know our league has a little bit of different rules when it comes to scoring, specifically for the quarterbacks. So we do 6 point touchdown passing instead of four. But Bo Nix was QB 8 on the year, and I don't know where that puts him exactly in just regular PPR scoring. I'm looking at it. Okay, quarterback 7. So he was a top 10 fantasy
He's top
quarterback.
10.
Top 10. Like that's just insane. Like he was just behind Jaden Daniels, and we're talking about like, oh my God, Jaden Daniels had like a record-breaking year and this and that, and it's like it was Jaden Daniels at 5, Jared Goff at 6, Bo Nix at 7. So he's right there in that category. And you did mention like, oh, I was talking about Michael Penix being old, and I think the only difference is that we all expected Michael Penix to sit at least a full year, maybe even 2, maybe even 3 years. The difference is Bo Nix came in and everybody knew he was going to be the starter from day one. So I think that does give him the upper hand and being like, okay, like, sure, I am a couple months older or even like a whole year older, but you know what? I'm the starter from day one, and they believed in me to be the starter rather than going to get a veteran quarterback and being like, okay, like, let's sit this guy down, but yet you're already 24 going on 25. So I think that's the key difference between these guys, but Bo Nix he was great overall this season. Round 1, pick 13 goes to Brock
Wait,
Bowers.
hold on. What if they had swapped teams last year? What if Bo Nix was taken by Atlanta and Penix was taken by
I
Denver? Do you think Denver would have had as much success, or do you
No,
think that it's really
I
all on Bo Nix's shoulders that he turned them around so fast?
I really don't think they would have been a playoff team with Michael Penix. I think they would have had maybe like a 7-win season, or like a 6-win season, so more like a mediocre season rather than a playoff caliber team. But I think it would have been the same agenda in Atlanta with Bo Nix and being like, oh, well, this guy's old, like he's 25 years old and this and that. But I think that's kind of why you don't hear that, because he is a day one starter rather than let's sit this guy down for a year or two.
Yeah, yeah, I can see that. Okay, moving on. You said next up was
Yeah, so
Mr. Bowers.
round one, pick 13, the Raiders own that, and they picked Brock Bowers. And everybody kind of was shocked, but not really at the same time. They were like, why didn't they take a quarterback? Like, this was a quarterback heavy draft. Why didn't they go a wide receiver? This was a wide receiver heavy draft. Instead, they went what people are claiming a generational talent in Brock Bowers. And I don't really disagree with that. I think Brock Bowers is a unicorn when it comes to the tight end position. And I know everybody was quick to say that with Sam Laporta last year. I know everybody was quick to say that with Kyle Pitts. But I think Brock Bowers is truly different. I really think he is. He was the main target on this team. He was the only reliable target on this team. They had Jacoby Myers and they had Trey Tucker, or was it? I think it was Trey Tucker, and then they had a revolving door at quarterback all year long, and they had a revolving door at running back all year long. It's just they could not get those two positions solidified at all. But yet he had a record breaking year. He was the tight end one in fantasy. He had 112 receptions for 1,006 yards shy of 1,200 yards. I mean, he didn't really do great in the touchdown department, but I mean, when you got Gardner Minshew and you got man, who else was their quarterback?
Aiden McConnell.
Aiden O'Connell. Aiden O'Connell. And then I know there was one other guy, but it's just like when you got those guys throwing you the ball and you're putting up 1,200 yards, he's like Malik Neighbors, you know, no quarterback to throw him the ball, but yet he's getting 1,200 yards out here. So he's just one of those guys that I would absolutely be targeting in the top 3 rounds, because when you really look at your fantasy team, sometimes you kind of look like, okay, like I'm pretty solid in the quarterback position, I'm pretty solid in the wide receiver position, but I feel like when it comes to a championship caliber team, I feel like somebody like Brock Bowers at the tight end position can really push your team over.
Yeah, and I mean, we talked about tight ends in the last episode. My biggest thing is, does your coach value that position, and are they going to use you as a wide receiver, or are you just another body on the line that's there to block? So I think for Oakland, they showed you that they intend to use him, or Las Vegas now. Sorry, my bad. Like, and
Oh.
everybody moves to Vegas now. Fuck Oakland, right? But anyways, just hated on Oakland for no reason. But yeah, obviously they value that position, and you saw it because of the usage. Now, what's interesting too is that every year for fantasy, especially for tight ends, it's almost like it's a revolving door of who's tight end one at the end of the season. You know, it used to always be Gronk, it used to always be Kelsey, and now you're seeing the shift in the guard at the tight end position. No more Zach Ertz as much. So yeah, Brock Bowers, if you're going to be looking for a tight end early, he's going to be probably the number one that comes off the board. Even someone like Evan Ingram kind of just really fell off too. So the tight end position has always been very tricky. And then you have somebody like Lad McConkey, which we'll talk about later, that kind of comes out of nowhere. But yeah, I mean, target him early if you value the tight end position that much, because somebody else will be drafting him ahead of you if you don't.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's just going to go so early in the draft that whether you're either going to get him or you're just not. Like he's going to
Yeah, yeah.
like he's not one of those guys where he's like, "Okay, like maybe he'll fall to me." Like if you
No,
really
yeah, yeah,
want
yeah.
him, like you
If
have to jump on him.
and honestly, if he's on the board and it's like, let's say, like,
The fourth
I would say if
round,
he's on the board third or fourth round, I mean, you
like
probably have to
that's
take him.
no, you absolutely have to. Like if he's still on the board in like at the beginning of the fourth round, you better be the one to take him because that is an absolute steal at round 4.
Yeah, especially if you're in the last pick of the if you're in the last position in your draft and you're picking back to back, third into the fourth or whatever round into whatever round, then that's probably somebody that you're going to want to take because by the time the draft comes back to you, he's going to be long gone.
All right, so we're moving on all the way down to round 1, pick 23 at Brian Thomas Jr., wide receiver out of LSU. And you had mentioned LSU's It just seems like it's wide receiver U right now. They got four of the best wide receivers in the game right now. You got Brian Thomas Jr., who's coming off of a phenomenal year, Malik Neighbors, who's also coming off of a phenomenal year, and both of those guys were rookies this year. And then you have two of the highest paid wide receivers in the league from LSU, which is Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase. And those guys, nobody's going to argue with you that both of those guys are minimum top five, no matter how their top five rankings go. They're not going to be outside the top five at all. But Brian Thomas Jr. was also fantastic considering his situation. I mean, he was splitting targets with Christian Kirk for a portion of the year. He was also splitting targets with Evan Ingram a portion of the year. And for him to be the bell cow of the team, it's just Trevor Lawrence was hurt for some of the year, and he had Mac Jones throwing him the ball, and he put up damn near 1,300 yards with 10 touchdowns. And it's just like, as a rookie, that is just insane. And not to mention that he didn't even crack 100 receptions, and he put up almost 1,300 yards. So I think that's just like absolutely phenomenal talent. I think that's great production from a wide receiver. And I don't expect him to put up 1,300 yards again next year, but I do believe that he will be a 1,000-yard receiver again if they use him properly, especially now getting their new head coach in, I think is it Brian Callahan? I think is their new head coach. I could be wrong on that, but I mean, just to average 14.7 yards a reception is just, I think it's insane from a wide receiver, especially being a rookie.
Yeah, dude. So I see the new coach being Liam Cohen
Liam
as the new
Cohen,
head
yeah,
coach
that's what it is.
in Jacksonville. Um, One interesting thing as we were talking wide receivers from LSU. I mean, you have Jarvis Landry, right? You have Odell Beckham. Those were like the two most recent ones that really exploded. And then recently, the ones you named off. So yeah, wide receiver you for sure, LSU. I think that's how they should pitch their recruiting trips when they go talk to wide receivers. Like, you want to be in the NFL, you come to LSU. You know what I mean? So a lot of potential for him. He's another guy that I could say will be like a wide receiver number two for sure for any fantasy team going forward this year. So if you are in a wide receiver, well, a lot of leagues will allow you to at least play three wide receivers. So you can play him as a flex, you can play him as your number two. But if he's another wide receiver that's on the board, you're going to probably have to take him based on the production that he had last year.
But the next player that we actually have off the board, why is my computer not loading? That's fantastic. Is Xavier Worthy. We have Xavier Worthy at round 1, pick 28, wide receiver out of Texas, who actually broke the record for the 40-yard combine. Um, how do you like Xavier Worthy moving on into his second year?
Xavier Worthy. I mean, anytime your quarterback's going to be Pat Mahomes, I think you're in good. You're in a good spot. 21 years old, barely. So a lot of upside from him. Out of UT, hook 'em horns. Just kidding. I don't like UT at all. Bill Miners every day, all day.
Go
Um,
Miners.
was he the one that got in trouble recently, or was
Yeah,
that a
he was no,
different
he
wide
was the one that
receiver?
got
No, yeah, he
arrested.
was the one that got arrested, but it says that he will not be charged with an assault charge. So
Yeah.
he obviously lawyered up pretty fast, and they took care of that situation.
I mean, it
So
helps
that's
when you're
good.
on a Super Bowl caliber NFL team, because
Yeah, I mean, when you're making millions of dollars, I mean, you can lawyer up pretty fast. Not a big deal. But at least that situation is behind him. Moving forward, very relevant in fantasy for sure because I don't know if Kelsey has decided if he's coming back for the Chiefs or not. But if he was to retire, then that opens up like a huge target share for not only the other tight ends, but for all of the pass catchers on the Kansas City Chiefs. So a lot of upside for him. Like I said, anytime Pat Mahomes is your quarterback, you're gonna have a chance to have a relevant football or fantasy season. So look for him to be like a wide receiver three, a flex in most leagues, and potential was really high for Xavier Worthy. So I would be looking to get him if I could in one of the later rounds.
yeah, I think I would absolutely be doing the same thing. I just I think he's more of like a flex worthy, no pun intended, a flex worthy option. Just because Pat Mahomes, I mean, we all know that he's a phenomenal quarterback. He's just always going to be there in the playoffs, in the Super Bowl. He's like Brady. He just somehow knows how to win. He knows how to get it done all the time, even when we count him out, which we should never count Pat Mahomes out. But he was wide receiver 33 is what I'm looking at on the year. Last year, and that was with Travis Kelce in the lineup. So, like you said, I think if I'm not mistaken, Travis Kelce did say that he was already coming back, but he said that he wouldn't mind taking a step back to kind of let the offense flourish a little bit more, just so he's not taking 12 targets a game, and just so he's not like he doesn't feel obligated to be like, okay, like I'm the one that needs to get the ball. Like they already re-signed Hollywood Brown, they let D Hop go, which D Hop didn't really do anything, but Hollywood Brown he was okay the couple games that he did play throughout the year. I think he played like 5 games. And then they also have Rashee Rice coming back from injury because he did have that ACL injury. So I think there are still key components on this team that can develop and thrive under Pat Mahomes, and maybe we'll get 1,000-yard receiving season out of Xavier Worthy this next year. Because at the end of last year he was really good if you remember, and he was even great in the Super Bowl. Even if it was just stat padding, he was the only receiver who was really doing anything on that team. He had 638 yards, which isn't like a super great fantasy season, but for a rookie, like 60 receptions and 600 yards, like that's not a terrible season. It's like you can only really go up from there. You don't want to hit your ceiling right away in the NFL. You want to be able to have a long career and be able to develop the further in you go. But round one, pick 31, moving on to Ricky Pearsall, who wasn't really all that relevant. I mean, he did get shot, so there's that. But other than that, he was kind of okay. He had 400 yards. He had
Good
30.
God. He really wasn't that relevant. He only took a bullet.
He took a bullet for his team. He had 31
Caught more
receptions.
bullets than he did passes in the NFL this year.
That's
that was
crazy.
a bad joke. My bad. Bad
Bad.
joke. My bad.
I mean,
I'm going straight to hell.
he had 3 touchdowns. Did he only get shot like once, like with one bullet? Or like was it? Do you know?
I am not so knowledgeable on that situation. All I know is that there was bullets flying and he caught one of them. No pun intended.
Well, that was the only thing he was catching because he had 400 yards, 3 touchdowns. He was all right. I think he has the potential to make a little bit of a leap this year. Now that Debo is out and now that they're even shopping Brandon Ayuk around. So if Brandon Ayuk does end up leaving this offense, and now that Debo's gone, he has the potential to be a wide receiver 2 or maybe even a 1. You never know with this team. It's always I feel like the 49ers are always like a revolving door when it comes to just talent everywhere.
Yeah, they do a very good job of drafting and using free agency to get running backs and wide receivers. Look at Jordan Mason out of nowhere. He kind of just exploded onto the scene because of the injury to McCaffrey, and so now with the departure of Debo and with the shopping of Ayuk, potentially him not being there, yeah, Pearsall would be in line to really pick up some slack there. And if that's going to be the case, then he would probably be, a high-end wide receiver 3, a flex for sure, depending on, where he is in the draft, what round you can get him. But he should be in line to get more targets this year, which should lead to more production. So look for him to be taken probably I would say in like the 6th or 7th round in most fantasy leagues, maybe a little bit later on. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I feel bad about making all these jokes about him catching bullets. I feel like we shouldn't do that, especially because it's Sunday and it's the Lord's Day, and you know that I'm a big fan of the Lord.
A big fan of the Lord. Hey, you're going to
Big
church,
fan
right?
of the guy upstairs.
You're going to church right after this?
Dude, I went to church already twice today.
Oh, really?
That's how committed I am to the cause. So,
Did you?
just saying.
Did you fly over there?
No, I actually do church on an app. It's kind of crazy, dude. So you don't even have to go to church. God comes to you.
Oh, so it's called Church on the Go, or
Yeah.
what?
Yeah, it's called Christ Inside Me, and he's just inside you the whole time. From the moment you open that app, Christ is inside you.
Christ
And boy, does
inside
it feel good.
Wow, that's
Go straight to hell. I
Oh
told you.
my
I,
god.
I,
It's
I'll have
okay.
a
There's
table. I'll have a section in hell waiting for you guys when
I'll
you
be
get there.
meeting you down there. It's okay. I'm not any better. But yeah, Ricky Pearsall, that's really all we got to say about Ricky Pearsall. He got shot. Anyways, round 1, pick 32
Jesus Christ.
goes to the Carolina Panthers, and they picked Xavier Legette,
Oh.
wide receiver out of South Carolina. I think he wasn't. I don't think he was terrible this year. I mean, he did not have a fantasy relevant season whatsoever. He had 50 receptions for right under 500 yards. It was 49 receptions for 497 yards. So you're averaging basically like 10 yards a reception. And he did have 4 touchdowns. So if he can get 4 touchdowns on 50 receptions, I would like to see what he can do on 100 receptions and maybe like a 1,200 yard season from him. I don't know if he's capable of doing that when you're in Carolina. I mean, I did like Bryce Young at the end of last year. I think he actually can be fantasy relevant next year. Both Xavier Legette and Bryce Young. I just don't know if I would be looking for him in even like the top 7 rounds next year. Xavier Legette. I think I would rather have someone like Xavier Worthy over Xavier Legette. I think that's my personal opinion. I would rather have Xavier Worthy, who is considered like a wide receiver 2 or 3 on the depth chart, over maybe Xavier Legette, who's maybe a 1 or 2 behind Adam Thielen.
No, yeah, and I mean, a lot of that has to go to, the play of Bryce Young. Um, Carolina only won 4 games last year. So when you're playing from behind, you're probably going to be throwing the ball a lot more. So he does have potential to, especially if he is wide receiver number 1, to have some fantasy relevance. I mean, if you think about it, Thielen was kind of relevant in fantasy last year. So if he can take over that production, then yeah, I mean, you could target him late. He wouldn't be one of the first guys off the board. And besides Chuba Hubbard in Carolina, I don't know who else you would be looking at that team for fantasy wise. But he's more of a guy that I would pick very, very late or as a free agent at the end of the draft.
Yeah, I think that rounds out the first round. If you wanna move on to the second round really quick. Second round starts with round 1, pick 33, Keon Coleman going to the Buffalo Bills, wide receiver out of Florida State. I know we kind of touched on him when we were talking about the Bills in our AFC East episode. But I like Keon Coleman as a wide receiver. I think he can be a 1, and I think he does have the potential to flourish in an offense with Josh Allen at quarterback. I think he does just need the scheming around him to work a little bit better, and I think it doesn't really help considering the fact that they don't have a lot of offensive weapons outside of maybe Keon Coleman, and I mean Dalton Kincaid wasn't even all that great this year. And then James Cook and Josh Allen, it was really their offense this year.
Yeah, I mean, those two alone, when they got to the red zone, those were the main two targets were Cook and then using Allen as a running back in the red zone. Bringing in Amari Cooper midseason probably also didn't help Keon Coleman because now there's another wide receiver that is proven and that is going to take some targets away from you. But I am a fan of him. I think that he has potential. Look at his frame alone. The guy's huge. He can jump out of the building with the best of them. Uh, Florida State, not always known for producing the most prolific wide receivers, but I think that he has very high potential. And then anytime Josh Allen is your quarterback, if you can just develop some sort of chemistry with him, then you probably will have some good usage in that offense. I'm looking at Coleman. I actually drafted him in a league last year, so I will be looking for him again this year with the upside that we talked about. Especially later on in the draft, if he's floating around, I'm definitely looking to snag him up, wide receiver 3 or flex, however you want to play him. But yeah, he's somebody that I am actually high on this year.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. Round 2, pick 34, second pick of the second round, goes to Lad McConkey, wide receiver out of Georgia, and everybody was kind of looking at Keon as Lad McConkey, kind of like a nobody in last year's draft. They were kind of just like he's undersized. I mean, we all know the joke where, oh, he's a white receiver so he can't be a wide receiver 1. But I think he was really great last year. I mean, to not even play I don't really know how to word this, but he wasn't really part of the offense at the beginning of the year. You know, if you really think about it, it was a running offense that they had the first half of the year, and I don't think it was until maybe like week 9 or somewhere around there is when they really kicked it into gear and they said, okay, let's use Herbert to the best of his absolute ability and let's let him sling the ball around. And that's exactly what they did, and it worked, and it got them into a playoff position. And if you remember, they were first round exits to the Houston Texans, but Keon Coleman had 14 targets in that game, 9 receptions for 197 yards and 1 touchdown, with his longest reception of the year going in that game for 86 yards. And I think that game really showed what Lad McConkey can do as a wide receiver one. I think they said, you know what, this is the guy that we need. I think they are still looking for someone else, but I think when it came to last year, they just didn't really know how to use their wide receiver room. I think that they were kind of in denial that like Lad McConkey was their wide receiver one almost because they wanted to believe so hard in Quentin Johnston, even though we all know that he has a insane problem in dropping the ball every single game, especially in prime time. But I think Lad McConkey can be a great wide receiver one. I think he was like a top 15 wide receiver last year, was he not? I think it was number 12, number 14. He was wide receiver 14 on the year. So to be wide receiver 14 and you didn't even kick it into gear until maybe like week 8, week 9, I think that really shows an immense amount of talent.
Yeah, I mean, I think probably what the coaches were reserved about was his size. He's only 6 foot, 185. Second round pick out of Georgia. Georgia has been known to have like these wide receivers that get to the pros and kind of not always pan out for the best, but I mean he did have a very good year. Going forward, I would say that he is going to be a wide receiver two in most fantasy leagues. I would say, so definitely if you have the chance to get him in the mid round somewhere, round 5 or 6 or 7, if he's on the board, he's somebody that you're going to want to take based on the upside alone.
Yeah, I mean, he has an insane amount of upside in a Harbaugh coach team and when Justin Herbert is throwing you the ball. Um, let's move on to the next pick, and we got Jalen Polk at pick 37 in the draft, wide receiver out of Washington. So we already talked about 2 Washington teammates. We talked about Michael Penix Jr. and we talked about Roma Dunze, and everybody kind of thought that Jalen Polk was going to be the wide receiver one in New England, getting taken off the board so high. And you might think like, oh, round 2, like that's not all that high. Like round 2 is a really high pick, especially when you're the 5th player in that round, you know. And for New England to hold him to such a high standard, and for him to just not produce all year. I mean, he's got the size. He's 6'1", he's 203 pounds, and he had less than 100 receiving yards all season. Like, I think I could name about 20 receivers off the top of my head that had more receiving yards in one game than this guy did all season long.
Well, I mean, a lot of it is playing with the Patriots last year. I mean, in his last 10 games, he had 2 receptions and a target share of 3-1-1-0-2-1-1-0-1. So not a lot of usage or even eyes looking his way. But I mean, we're not going to write him off just yet. You know, it was his rookie season. Once they get some stability at the quarterback position in New England, you would only think that his production would be better. But he is a talented guy. I mean, like you said, 6'1", 203 out of Washington. We'll see how it pans out in his second year in New England. But I think he's suffering from that same thing where it's like you can't choose where you get drafted to. And right now, New England's offense, fantasy-wise, there's not a lot to be excited about. So I don't even know if he's worth a pick in the draft. Maybe just somebody that you keep your eye on, maybe as a waiver wire claim later on in the season if he starts to develop.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it is his rookie year, so it's not fair to write him off after 1 year. But I mean, being a Patriots fan, I'm gonna scrutinize him a little bit more than maybe Keon Coleman or Lad McConkey, especially after only having 87 receiving yards the entire year. And we drafted him with the expectation that he can step into a wide receiver one or maybe even a wide receiver two position. And he probably wasn't even the fifth receiver on our team in terms of receiving yards. You know, Hunter Henry was the wide receiver one, and he was our tight end. So there's just it. I don't know if it's a connection thing where Drake May can't get the ball to Jalen Polk because they just don't have that chemistry yet, or if it's a Jalen Polk issue where he just can't get open. He can't get that separation, and maybe he's just not meant to be that NFL caliber wide receiver. But I mean that's just my take. I'm just hard on him. I do want to skim over this pick before we get to our next one. Is Jonathan Brooks? He was a round two pick 46 out of Texas. He was a wide receiver. I mean, he was a running back coming out of Texas, and he was looked at very highly, similar to Bijan Robinson out of the draft class 2 years ago. But I just want to skim over him just because we all thought he was going to be like a really great talent out of the draft, and he was a steal at this position. But he did come off of an ACL injury, and then to come and play, I think maybe 4 games that he played all season, and then he re-tore his ACL, and that's just so unfortunate to hear. You know, you really hate to see that. Like, he went through a whole years of rehabilitation, all just to tear his ACL again. So I think it's a tough scenario for anybody like that. But let's go ahead and get into round two, pick 52 at Adonai Mitchell, wide receiver drafted to the Colts out of Texas, also. So it's the same college. I don't. First of all, I'm not a huge Colts fan. Second of all, I think the best wide receiver that they have in my eyes is Michael Pittman Jr. I've always liked Michael Pittman Jr. as a wide receiver, even coming out of college. And I don't really see Adonai Mitchell as the wide receiver one on this team. I mean, I know they don't have a great quarterback scenario, but he has 23 receptions all year on 55 targets for 312 yards. And if I'm not mistaken, he had maybe like one or two really okay games, and that was about it. I'm looking here against Buffalo. He went 6 for 6, 71 yards, and that was his biggest game all year. The next highest was against Tennessee, one reception for 36 yards. So it's like he wasn't really relevant. I mean, there was a Jacksonville game where he had 4 receptions for 38 yards, but I definitely don't see Adonai Mitchell stepping into that wide receiver one role anytime soon.
I'd say it's too early to call on him. I mean, he did play every game. He played 17 games, but yeah, I mean, Indianapolis, another team where fantasy relevance is hard to come by outside of your boy Jonathan Taylor, and then other than that, Michael Pittman Jr. Not a lot to write home about Indianapolis again. So it'll be interesting. Give him another year, see how he develops. But another guy that'll be a waiver wire ad, if anything, during the season. No need to have him on your draft board this year.
Yeah, so moving on to round three, we start off the draft with Trey Benson, running back out of Florida State, and he was drafted to Arizona. He played behind James Conner, so it's with this guy, it's definitely too early to tell whether this guy is going to be something in the NFL or not. And I definitely wouldn't be targeting him in drafts this year in fantasy whatsoever. But I mean, you got to give somebody the benefit of the doubt, especially when he only had 300 rushing yards all season long.
Oh yeah, and I mean he's gonna have the role to fill if they start to realize it's time to move on from James Conner. I don't know if they move on from him or they just diminish his role if Benson continues to develop. And then obviously he's younger than Conner, fresher legs. But James Conner is still a number one running back in Arizona, a number one running back in fantasy as well because of his workload. So if Benson can cut into that, maybe that will change things. But like you said, somebody that we're not really looking at as somebody to draft, maybe as a handcuff if you want to handcuff James Conner. Some people like to do that, but other than that, not a lot of potential there at the moment. Like we said, we're not huge on Arizona's offense, anyways.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it. Trey Benson is more of a handcuff on this team if James Conner does go down because James Conner does have a history of getting injured. But that's how I kind of view this next guy too, and it's going to be round three, pick 83 in the draft, and that's Blake Corum, running back out of Michigan. And I think this guy's also a handcuff. I don't think he's anybody you should be targeting in the draft whatsoever. He's gonna be a waiver wire pick, maybe like in a random week 8 game where Kyron Williams goes down or something, and hopefully Kyron Williams doesn't go down. But Kyron Williams is still the bell cow of this team, and they're moving forward with him as their RB1. I don't think they have any interest in moving on with Blake Corum, at least in the next year or even two. But I think he's definitely just more of like a handcuff as well.
Yeah, one thing that kind of not pushes me away from him, but just his size, 5'8", 210. We were joking about Darren Sproles being so small. This guy's pretty small too. But I mean, he did have a very good career with Michigan. He did play with JJ McCarthy there. So, he does have a winning pedigree, and it'll be interesting to see how they plan to use him in LA behind Kyron Williams, who, if you have Kyron Williams, then you might want to consider picking up Corum as that handcuff just to ensure that usage in your fantasy lineup. So besides that, if you're a Kyron Williams owner, then this is somebody that should probably be on your roster just in case.
And then I want to look at these next two guys off the board, kind of in the same scenario. I think different talents, but same scenario. We got Jalen McMillan, round three, pick 92, and then we also have Luke McCaffrey, which was the last pick of the third round. Luke McCaffrey got drafted to the Washington Commanders, and Jalen McMillan got drafted to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think Jalen McMillan is a very talented wide receiver, especially what I saw out of him last year after both Mike Evans and Chris Godwin went down. He had really great games, and I mean, maybe I'm just biased because I did have Baker Mayfield on my fantasy team last year, and I know for a fact I was screaming at the TV to get him the ball all game. But I think he is much more talented than Luke McCaffrey. Luke McCaffrey didn't look at all the same. But I say that these guys are in a similar scenario because they're behind two great wide receivers. In Tampa, you got Chris Godwin and Mike Evans, and then Luke McCaffrey is now behind Debo Samuel and oh my God, Terry
Scary
McLaurin.
Terry.
Yeah. So I think they're in similar situations. I don't think you should be looking for these guys in the draft at all. And if you're in deeper leagues, then yes, definitely pick up Jalen McMillan for sure. I'm not too fond of Luke McCaffrey myself.
I think if you're in a 12-team league, then McMillan should be on a roster at least. Simply because we've already seen that if there is going to be an injury to an injury-prone receiver like Mike Evans or Chris Godwin, then he's somebody that's going to be a plug-and-play if you have one of those players on your roster. So if you're gonna roster Mike Evans or Godwin, then I would say you should roster him as well. Keep him on the bench just in case one of those guys is hurt. Like I said, he would be a plug and play option, and Baker does seem to trust him. So I like him more than McCaffrey in with the Commanders. I think you made a good point. Now he's behind Debo and Scary Terry, so the production for him may not be there again this year. So him, I'm not touching at all. Maybe a waiver wire ad towards the end of the year, depending on what he shows.
Right, exactly. Moving on to round four now, we start off the draft with Jatavion Sanders. I'm not going to get too heavy into Jatavion Sanders. He wasn't really anything this year. I think he does have the talent to possibly make a jump this next year now that Bryce Young kind of amped it up a little bit at the end of last season. But that's really all I have to say about Jatavion Sanders. Troy Franklin is our next pick at round four, second pick off the board. I think Troy Franklin was great last year. I think he had, I know he had a couple long bomb touchdowns actually, or I might be thinking of, no, I might be thinking of the other wide receiver. I forgot his name. But Troy Franklin was great last year. I mean, he's a rookie. He still has potential to grow behind Cortland Sutton and now possibly behind Evan Ingram in that pecking order. I just probably wouldn't be looking for him. I would probably see him as like a waiver wire pickup as injuries start to go on in the league, and especially like you said, like if you're in a league like ours where it's a 12-man league and you have superflex where it's not superflex for the quarterback but it's a double flex. So I think this is somebody that is worth rostering in a league like that, but I don't think it's somebody worth starting week one.
Yeah, I mean, the most concerning thing is 53 targets all year. So that's not high. That's not usually in fantasy. If you're only getting 5 targets a game, or that's the highest amount of targets per game that you're getting, you're not going to see a lot of output. So, like you said, in a deeper leagues with super flexes, yeah, maybe you can roster him, but I think from the Broncos still. We don't know enough of how they plan to use him, so I wouldn't be adding him until waiver wire pickup, if anything.
Yeah, I wouldn't also be adding this guy, Theo Johnson, tight end on the Giants. He was the pick 107 in the draft, tight end out of Penn State. He looked okay in a couple of the games. He just wasn't productive, and I don't know if he's necessarily going to get production with Jameis Winston as his quarterback, especially if Jameis is throwing 300 yards a game to Malik Neighbors. So I think that's definitely going to be hard to compete with. The next guy we got off the board is Jalen Wright. He's a running back out of Tennessee. Jalen Wright was actually looked at highly coming out of the draft, but simply because of the team that he went to, he's not really high in the NFL, being behind. Oh man, it's not Raheem Mostert. What's his name in Miami?
Well, it not Mostert. I know who you're talking about. The other running back that used to be with the 49ers.
No, no,
His
no,
name
no,
is
no. I'll get his name, but continue.
No, no, yeah. I mean, not really much to say. Well, behind HN, that's the main guy.
HN, that's the guy.
But they actually have Alexander Madison on their roster this year too, the Dolphins. So that's interesting. That might cut into the work for Jalen Wright, but yeah, not much fantasy relevance at this point. Not even worth the handcuff in my mind. So just keep an eye on him, maybe for the later weeks in the season if there's an injury or something like that. But not a lot to say about him. Bucky Irving, probably the most notable one here in round four, just because of the way that Tampa utilized them and his ability to run through the tackles. But yeah, not a lot to say about him.
I
Well,
think,
not Bucky Irving. I mean Jalen Wright. Bucky Irving
yeah,
is definitely worth a spot on any roster. He's going to be a running back too in most leagues. So if you can scoop him up in the later rounds or even in the fourth or fifth round, that's not a bad pick. But yeah, these round four picks are actually
do you know where
not as
Bucky
impactful
Irving
as you would think.
do you know where Bucky Irving finished the year in fantasy?
Like is in the position,
Yeah,
like
in the
his
position.
what, like top five, maybe top 10.
No, he was just outside the top 10, but he was actually running back 13 on the year.
Yeah, that's not bad, solid. And I mean, you would only expect that's a upward projection for him. So you would think that he would finish in that top 15 range again this year.
Yeah, there was rumors last year that he would actually get picked up by the Broncos. I think he actually came out saying that he thought he was going to get picked up by the Broncos because he was going to regroup with his former teammate Bo Nix, both coming out of Oregon. But he ended up in Tampa, and I think this was a really great fit for him. He did take the starting position from um oh man, why am I blanking on names right now? I can't think of his name, but he took the starting
Yeah, well, I
position in
mean,
Tampa.
Tampa really never had that bell cow. They had one running back that the
Rashad
Cowboys
White.
ended up signing, but they haven't really had that number one. So that position has always been kind of up in the air for Tampa Bay. Um, I think you're thinking about Rashad White, the other running back that they had.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Tampa is a revolving door at running back. So who knows? Maybe Irving gets less playing time this year. Who knows? It's really hard to tell. But early indications after a rookie year like that is that he should be in line for another good year ahead of him.
Yeah, the next player I want to talk about, moving on from Bucky Irving, we got three running backs. We got Ray Davis, Isaac Guerendo, and Braylon Allen. Ray Davis was drafted by the Bills. Isaac Guerendo was drafted by the 49ers. and Braylon Allen was drafted by the New York Jets. I think the most interesting one out of this group is actually Braylon Allen for me. And I've seen a lot of trade rumors where potentially Brees Hall gets shipped off somewhere and they use him as draft capital and they move on with Braylon Allen just because of how young he is. And if I'm not mistaken, I think he got drafted at 20. So at the beginning of this year, yeah, so he just turned 21 in January. He turned 21 January 20th. So he's a very young player. He's got plenty of time ahead of him, and I think he would actually be a really interesting decision. I don't know if it would be the smartest. Obviously, I'm not one of the coaches where I'm in practice with them every single day, kind of looking at how they play, but I think it would be very interesting if they were to move on with Braylon Allen over Brees Hall just because of pure longevity getting out of these guys.
Right, and I mean, he didn't really get a lot of carries. I mean, he had one game where he had 12, another game where he had 11, another game with 11. So the potential is there. I would say he's definitely a handcuff, though. So that keep that in mind. Unless the Jets do decide to move on, then you could plug in Braylon Allen into that running back role. But for now, it's still Hall's team, and if he's there, this is like I said, just a handcuff to him.
Yeah, so now we're getting into the deep rounds. We got rounds 5, 6, and 7, and we're kind of gonna mush these together because there's not a whole lot of notable players worth talking about here. So we got Audric Estime, who went to the Broncos in the 5th round, and then we also have Spencer Rattler, who we did see a little bit of playing time from him, and uh, I think Saints fans are kind of delusional because I didn't really like the way I saw him play, especially like in that Thursday night game against the Broncos. But I think I mean, I think he's just a backup right now. There's not much to say about Spencer Rattler and his playing style. Tyrone Tracy is definitely a steal of the draft. Looking back at it, he was. Fun fact about Tyrone Tracy is he was actually a wide receiver, and when he went into the league, they were like, "You're more of a running back style kind of player." So he decided he's like, you know what? I mean, when you're in the NFL, it's you either do what they say or you don't play at all. And I think that's a lot of leadership skills that you see out of Tyrone Tracy, and he takes a step up and he's like, you know what, I'm okay with taking the running back role so I can get playing time, and it worked out for him really well. He had just under 1,000 rushing yards this year at 839, and he had 5 rushing touchdowns, which I think was great out of him. He had 284 receiving yards, so he had over 1,000 yards all purpose, and then he had 6 touchdowns in total with one in the air. I don't think he's on a great team, but I think he's definitely RB2 status, RB3 status, and I think he's definitely worth taking in the draft this year.
No, yeah, definitely he's going to be drafted, especially running back number one. The only other running backs they have, well, they have three more on the roster, but Devin Singletary could be one that cuts into his time. But yeah, I mean, a steal for sure. Obviously, there wasn't any Tom Brady's hanging out in the seventh round of this draft that we know of yet. But a solid pick in Tyrone Tracy. Running back, what did you say? Running back one or two? I would say he's the running back one
Yeah,
in most
no,
leagues at this
for
point.
for sure, running back one. He finished as the running back 26 in fantasy, but I think it only goes up from here because he didn't start the year. He didn't start the year as a starter. He was actually behind in the pecking order, and I think he was running back 2 or even 3, and then he stepped into that running back one role after some injuries. But next we got Bub Means, who didn't really do much for the Saints. I know there was a lot of wide receiver injuries, and everybody thought, okay, like now is his time to shine. And even with all those injuries, he did not shine whatsoever. And then next is Kamani Vidal for the Chargers, and again, same thing there. I mean, there was running back injuries, and he also just did not shine when it was his time to step up to the plate. And last but not least, I want to round it out with this player at Joe Milton, quarterback who was taken by the Patriots from Tennessee in the 7th round, or in the 6th round. I'm sorry. And I want to talk about Joe Milton a little bit just because I'm a Patriots fan, but I think it's very interesting that they took 2 quarterbacks in this draft. And I'm actually very surprised that somebody like Joe Milton fell to the 6th round. I thought he was going to be taken just a little bit earlier. I'm not talking round 1 or 2, but maybe 4 or 5. And after we saw him in last year's last game of the season for the Patriots, obviously he was playing against backups, but even then did not play bad at all. He had a 75% completion percentage on 251 yards, one touchdown, no interceptions. And I think it was really great to see him kind of just have fun and thrive out there, knowing that it was the last week of the year. And I've also heard that they say, hey, you know what? Let's put Joe Milton on the trade block and let's see what draft capital we can get out of him to see how we can bolster up our roster a little bit more in other positions.
I mean, I think for the Patriots, it'd just be a good idea to hang on to him. That way, you have like if you know that you have a backup quarterback that you can at least say is serviceable out there, then that's you're straighting up that position just in case Drake May was to get hurt or maybe just be playing that bad. At least you have somebody like Joe Milton that can be plugged into the offense. And one of those quarterbacks that is older as well, he's 25 years old. So he actually just turned 25. But yeah, a lot of potential for him. And hopefully, the Patriots can get their quarterback situation figured out. And then hopefully that will trickle down and help improve the rest of the roster, the skill positions, the running backs, the tight ends, all that.
Yeah. I'm actually just shout out UTEP. There was an offensive guard taken in the 6th round, Elijah Klein, taken out of UTEP. So shout out Elijah Klein going to the Bucks. Just wanted to point that out
O
because I
line
saw that.
University, Utah.
O-line University UTEP. Do you remember? I think it's Will Hernandez.
Will Hernandez,
Yeah.
Brian Young, another defensive tackle that was very successful in the league. Johnny Lee Higgins, Thomas Howard, Aaron Jones, a couple UTEP alumni that made it to the NFL. But it's good to see anyone from UTEP getting some love, and we wish them the best going forward. Obviously, picks up, go Miners.
Go Miners, baby. All right, well, that about wraps it up for the draft recap of last year. So let's go ahead and round out this episode, Chris, with do you want to, which one do you want to do? Do you want to go with trivia or do you want to go with the QB one? You get to pick.
I would say let's build our own quarterback today. How do you feel about that?
I'm cool with that. So if you guys haven't seen, I saw it. I actually saw it on whose podcast was it? I think it was the Amon Ra St. Brown podcast that I was watching this on. So shout out Amon Ra. He's got his own podcast, but
He
he
has a
had
podcast.
yeah. So he had Puka
That's
Nakua
crazy.
on his podcast, and they were building the perfect receiver. And I was like, oh well, why don't we do build your perfect quarterback? You know. So
Okay. Okay.
we got a couple different variations of it. So we're gonna go based off of IQ, time management, running ability, throw power, toughness, and then style. And I mean style is like pre-game fits, post-game fits, like your actual clothing style, like
Well, so you mean fashion?
yeah, like fashion, like not
Okay.
like
All right.
QB
I was
style.
thinking like style of play. I
No,
was
no,
like,
no,
what?
no.
Well, you know what? I'm gonna say that I would start off by I want Brett Favre's penis because he has a horn apparently.
You know what? I actually want
So
his financial advisor as well, I think that
his
one would be
his
great.
ability to defraud state governments for money. How about we take that
Yeah, let's
for,
take
from
that.
Brett Favre? I
Let's take
like
that
that.
one.
Okay. Jokingly, I would want also Pat Mahomes. I would like his girlfriend Taylor Swift. I would want
No,
her to
that's
be
Travis
mine.
Kelsey.
Or Travis Kelsey. My bad. Did I say Pat Mahomes?
You said Pat Mahomes.
I said Pat Mahomes. It's because I'm just so in love with Taylor that I just can't think of anything else but her. You know what I mean? Huge
Oh
Taylor Swift
man.
fan over here, guys. And I'm
Wow.
not kidding about that. But just kidding. All jokes aside, quarterback IQ, I'm going Peyton Manning for sure. Give me that all day. The ability to read the defense like a book, like a goddamn book. That's how he reads it. Time management, Tom Brady, the best to ever do it in that category, I would say. Running ability, it's got to be Michael Vick. I know that's ridiculous, but I mean, who else is better than him at running the ball? Throw power, that one is kind of hard because I'm trying to think of who's got the biggest arm that I've ever seen. And probably that's tough. I mean, who's like Donovan McNabb's arm was pretty fire, I would say. So
Wow.
I would go with him. And then toughness, Troy Aikman, his ability to take a concussion with the best of them. Hall of Famer just in that. Style, I don't know if I like his style, but his style is always funny. Is Cam Newton.
I knew you were gonna
So
say Cam Newton.
that's where I'm going because he's just he doesn't care what people think about him or his clothes. So shout out to Cam Newton. But yeah, that's about where I would say my perfect quarterback is. Uh, Sounds like he would win a lot of Super Bowls, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a pretty solid quarterback. How many Super Bowls do you think he wins? I'm gonna say four.
More than Brady.
More than Brady. Well, speaking of
That's
Brady,
all that matters. I mean, if you don't win more than him, then what did you do?
fair enough.
Nothing.
IQ,
Nobody's ever gonna win more than him.
IQ. I'm gonna go with Tom Brady. I think he was able to read defenses like there's no tomorrow. Time management, I would probably go Aaron Rodgers for that. Running ability, I mean, you got to go Lamar Jackson. I have to go Lamar Jackson. Throw power, I would 100% go Josh Allen. Give me Josh Allen all day for that. Toughness, I got to go with Baker Mayfield for toughness. I love the way he plays the game, and if you see him and he's not afraid to run into a linebacker or a lineman downhill, I think it's just great watching a quarterback do something like that. And then style, give me Joe Burrow's style, like his pregame fits. I think Joe Burrow has some pretty good style. That's my
I didn't know
perfect
white
quarterback.
people had style.
He
That's new to
does
me.
have
That's
style.
breaking
Yeah, I know.
news. White people have swag.
White
Look at
people
that.
swag.
Honorable mention. I would love the ability to get hurt like Tua. Like that guy just loves to fucking kill himself.
His concussion.
There's that right with him. And I don't know. I think my quarterback would destroy your quarterback. That's what
Wow.
I'm saying.
Actually, no. I think my quarterback's winning all day long. I mean, like you
Well, I
took.
get too bad. There's no way to there's too bad. There's no way to prove this, right?
Or is there? No. Yeah. I wish
Or
there
is
was.
there?
I mean, we got AI.
Chat GPT built me this quarterback. How many Super Bowls does he win?
How many Super Bowls does he win?
Over under 5.
Oh, I'm going under 100. For yours, under. For mine, easy over. That's locks.
That's funny.
But yeah, I think that just about does it for this episode. Thank you guys for joining us on a beautiful episode 6. If you guys did enjoy, make sure you like, make sure you subscribe. All of you are beautiful people. Chris, you got anything else to say? You got anything else to say?
Sorry about that. Sorry about that. Had a little interruption right there. Thank you guys. Episode 6, the Sideline Podcast. Make sure you are subscribing, liking, sharing. Like I mentioned at the top of the podcast, we will have some production changes coming soon. We're not going to tell you all about that yet. You're going to have to wait and let that anticipation kill you. But yeah, thanks again. Beautiful Sunday to do a podcast, talk some football. Thanks again, Adam. I think you need to go to the doctor because you're breaking out in hives over there. But that's
I
another
am. I've got an
story for
allergic
another day.
reaction.
But shout out to everyone who listened this far. Sideline Podcast, like we said, make sure to like, subscribe, all that good stuff. It's free, right, Adam?
It's free. It doesn't take any money. It just takes 30 seconds of your time to follow us on all social media platforms, wherever you listen to podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music. And until next time, we'll see you guys later. Peace.